Okay. I don't think I should leave this. I don't think I should leave this. Bye. Yeah. Oh, can you hear me now? Could you not hear before? You've got us on mute.
I know.
Apologies if everyone could just bear with us a bit longer.
Be able to hear us.
Without the microphone?
No, with the microphone.
With the microphone. So everyone's in now? Okay. I think we're ready to go. If there are anyone who's dialed in is having any trouble, if you could just maybe put your hand up on through the system and let us know that you are having difficulties. That you see there's a chat there. If you could just sort of send a note and we'll try and rectify it. Welcome to the Waverley Local Planning Panel meeting of the 26th of July 2023. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional land upon which we meet today and pay respects to those owners, past and present. The panel today, the experts are Graham Brown and Jan Morell. The community representative is Alison Small. We don't have a big agenda today. We've got 6 items. We do not have a lot of speakers either, but we still ask that you try and limit your time to 3 minutes. We have a timer and we'll yell out if you have gone way over your time. If we could all be respectful on the items where there are multiple speakers, we appreciate that. Once we've heard all of items and speakers today, we'll then adjourn and the panel will then leave the room and deliberate, and the decisions will be posted up on the website in due course. The first item today is DA 5402022. It's 122 Francis Street, Bondi Beach. It's for alterations and additions to Strata Title 3 story residential flat building. With the speakers, there was no submissions received for this application. The registered speaker today is Anthony Batros, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant. You're from ABC Planning. Anthony, are you there?
Hello. Yeah, sorry, I'm from a car park, so I apologise for that.
That's okay. Just as long as we can hear you, that's fine.
Great. Would you like me to start?
Yeah, when you're ready.
Thanks very much. And also just like to thank council for their assessment application. We're happy with the recommendation for approval. Just raised one issue with condition 2D, which is on page 29 of 356 of the business paper. It requires the front setback to be maintained as communal open space and not be converted into private open space for the ground floor units. We request that be provided as private open space. The floor plan is included in council's agenda as well, and that's floor plan DA16, which shows the front garden areas to both the ground floor units. The balconies that service the units 1 and 2 at ground floor are undersized. They don't meet the ADG for upper level or ground floor balcony areas, which are required to be 15 square metres under the ADG. The inclusion of the front gardens would allow for that compliance to be achieved. The front gardens are also not readily accessible for the entire users of the property, given the stair and retaining walls that divide the two unit 1 and 2 unit 2 garden areas, if you can see that on your floor plans. So in my opinion, they're more conducive and appropriate for use for private purposes. We would be happy to maintain a front section of say 1 metre along the frontage to be retained as communal on the strata plan, and that could be that could have communally maintained landscaped area so as not to provide for sort of private usage or maintenance in a different way. I don't think it would generate any impacts as it's consistent with the western neighbour at 124, which also has private open space in the front setbacks. In terms of communal space, there's also a park very close to the site, and the upper level units also have their own balconies. So on that basis, we'd request the communal requirement in condition 2D be deleted. Happy to answer any questions.
Panel, do we have any questions for Anthony?
I've just got one. Anthony, would the applicant object to planting of another canopy tree on the other part of open space in the front area?
Not at all. On the western side, there seems to be scope for that as well, which would add further privacy to that area. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that it's a very symmetrical building, and probably the pairing would be appropriate. Okay, thanks. Anthony.
Thank you. And it's steep soil and north facing, so that'd be fine.
Alison, did you have any questions?
Don't have any questions.
Thank you very much, Anthony. I'd just like to, just before you go, so you can hear this, declarations of interest I forgot to call. I believe the Graham Brown, one of the experts today, has 2 declarations of interest to make. On what items are they, Graham?
Thank you, Chair. In relation to item WLPP-230712, item 2 on the agenda, I declare that I have a non-pecuniary interest. I have a social relationship with the owner of one of the units in the application. I have not discussed the application with the owner, and the interest is not sufficient to disqualify myself from the matter. The second item is item WLPP-2307.4, item 4. I declare that I was on the panel that refused this development application. As this is a review of this decision, I must stand down from any discussion or determination of this review. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. And there's no other declarations conflict to make. Thank you, panel, and apologies for not doing that at the beginning of the meeting. Anthony, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item now.
Thank you.
The next item is DA 132-2023 and 232-234 Campbell Parade, Bondi Beach, alterations and additions to residential flat building, enclosure of terraces and increase in floor space at the eastern side of level 2. There were no submissions received for the application at all during the public exhibition, and there's no registered speakers. We'll move on now to item number 3. Item number 3 is DA 4352022, 6 Pacific Avenue, Tamarama. Its description is amended plans, construction of 2 3-storey semi-detached dwellings and 1 detached dwelling with integrated parking. We have a number of submissions, written submissions were received on this application. And today we have speakers speaking against the recommendation of council. And we also have the applicant, who I believe was given late notice, which it was unfortunate, but we're pleased that you're here today and making yourself available. The objectives will go through. Like I said, there's a couple of you today, so if we could refrain from repeating the submissions if you can, and also give respect to all speakers once they're speaking and afterwards if any questions are asked of them. The first objector speaking today is Vaughan Blanc. Yvonne, are you there? No. The next speaker.
Sorry, yes, I am.
Oh, you are? I can't see you, but I can hear you. All right.
Sorry, I'll start the video. There you go.
Oh, there you are. Great. Thank you. When you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep this brief. Basically, I'm not against the development per se. My only concern is that the development steers away from what was approved in the subdivision plan. And that to me is a big concern. We never objected to the subdivision plan on the basis of an outline that existed. And therefore, I believe it has been slightly misleading to go ahead and, once the subdivision has been approved, to go ahead and amend plans which are now in excess of that subdivision plan. So that's my concern. I think it's been misleading. Had this development been shown as it was from the beginning, we may have taken a different view on the subdivision objection.
Thank you, Vaughan.
Thanks very much.
Panel questions for Mr. Blanc? No. Thank you very much.
Are we allowed to ask questions, or is it only the council that can
No,
ask?
but you're coming up next, Sophie, so your time starts if you're ready to go.
Oh, okay. So my name's Sophie Baldwin. I'm the resident of number 12 Silver Street. And firstly, I note and am appreciative of the process for this development in getting to a result that I think is fair for everyone. I'll just summarise my 3 main issues. I don't know if they're objections, but things that I think need to be noted. The first one is that I read through the notes from the planner, and I felt that the driveway issues within the street have been they're not serious enough for what is going on within the street. The fact we park in our driveways is not the issue. We are reversing into 3 lanes of Carlisle Street. I reverse 52 metres backwards into people coming down the path going to the beach. There will be a casualty. I've sent 3 videos to the DA email address, one of them showing the Woolworths truck delivering groceries to my house, and actually had a traffic person coming to do some diagrams for me, because the council has been helping me, but at a departmental level. The Woolworths truck had to reverse backwards to Carlisle Street to turn, and in the video 3 cars almost swipe it at the back. And I'd like council to take this seriously, and I think it needs, each department's helped, but we need a much more cohesive response to this street, because it is really, I can't even explain how dangerous it is. My second point, and my neighbour is going to elaborate on that. My second point is in review to the view analysis, and I believe that the architect had the best intentions to try and get us so that we could share views. However, we have asked repeatedly for a more methodical and quantitative view analysis here and height sticks, and that was rejected. So I feel that the person who's developing this application, it's their word against nobody's, because we don't have the quantitative data, and we would be willing and happy to pay a surveyor just to check that the heights are as they are shown in the drawings. I draft for a living, and I know how hard and how easy it is for those drawings to be misinterpreted. I also know that the architect has tried to show us, but we don't have the knowledge to understand that. We need an external surveyor just to have a look at the height sticks, and I think that would be something that I still request, because in the notes it's only the developer's diagrams, nobody else's. My third point is a minor point. I have a north-facing balcony that is an extension of my lounge room. On the eastern side, this development on the Silver Street side has a glass elevator. It means when people are going up and down, and given that we have a seat and where we sit on that balcony, they can see straight into my house. And I was hoping that we could ask, please, for some sort of obscured glass. Obviously, they need the light and that's fine, but some sort of privacy thing on that glass elevator that is against my northern boundary balcony. And I guess the other point was that I just I wanted to understand Vaughan's point of view about the subdevelopment, because I've tried to read up on it and we weren't around when that happened. And I do feel that the footprint of this is very, very large for the block. And I think we've always had that concern. So I guess I just wanted to understand that a bit more. Thank you.
Okay, Sophie, thank you. We might be able to address that with the applicant to explain that. The panel questions, any questions? No, thank you, Sophie.
Thank
The
you.
next speaker is Madeline.
Hi, thank you for having me today. I own, alongside my husband, 7 Pacific Avenue, Tamarama, where I've resided for the last 12 years with our young family. I accept that there's been amendments since the unapproved DA in 2018, but I still have some concerns and objections relating to view loss, privacy, overshadowing and overdevelopment. So in terms of view loss, I won't repeat too much of what Soph says, but we also enjoy 180-degree views that are iconic, include the Tamarama Surf Club and extend over to Bronte. Obviously, that has a huge financial impact on our property to any view loss that we receive, but it's also one of the reasons we purchased our property and what we enjoy most about living in this very special spot. As with Soph, I have requested both in writing, in the written submissions, as well as when council has come on site to visit, that we get a physical measure with visual poles. And unlike Sophie, I'm just a general member of the public that doesn't have expertise in technical drawings, but I just do not trust the validity of the computer montage drawings that we have received. I think, as Soph mentioned, we'd request visual poles. We would love to defer the decision to next month's panel to be able to see those go in place. I would invite council to come, panel to come and see the impacts once those poles are erected. And if needs be, Sophie and I are prepared to share the costs to put this physical measure and more objective measure in place. In terms of privacy, to the rear of my property on the ground floor, I have a pool, and obviously my family enjoys that. And on the top floor, we have a barbecue and deck area where we really do enjoy a very private dining and living space. So the 3 dwellings intersect right next to that back outdoor dwelling for us. And I just wanted to request the following. The rear of the dwelling directly adjacent to our property, which I'm not sure is number 2 or number 1, but it's the Pacific Avenue frontage property. There appears to be a deck on the first level. However, there's no privacy screening, and we'd request that screening is provided here. The plans also appear to show that there may be some privacy screening for the rear balcony of the 3rd dwelling, which then fronts onto Silver Street. However, it's not annotated and it's unclear, and this needs clarification on the plans, as well as a request to obviously ensure that there is privacy screening here. And I'd also request that the kitchen window on the first floor of the dwelling is obscured, glazed, and has a privacy screening. In terms of overshadowing, I've requested shadow diagrams, and again, the accuracy of these, especially as they relate to the back of my property and my outdoor terrace. We use this balcony frequently, and I know from experience that throughout the day at varying times there's sunlight, and yet the diagrams indicate otherwise. I've provided visual photos of this as late as I can. I think the notes say that it wasn't during the winter solstice, it was 20 days before, but I've obviously showed those diagrams in keeping with the timeframes of submissions. But we really do experience sunlight all day in that back area where our pool also is.
Madeline,
in-
Madeline,
yes.
your time's
Yeah.
actually up. Your time's up. Have you got a final point?
Yes, I've just got a final point. I accept that the DA has been approved with 3 allotments. However, compared to the existing dwellings, the current DA feels like an egregious overdevelopment outside of council controls. Just because the subdivision has been accepted for 3 dwellings doesn't mean the building envelope should be maximised on all 3 spaces as it is. And there are amenity impacts to this, as is evident in the council recommendations for design amendments. And I believe there's merit in the scale and mass of the building being reduced.
Great. Thanks, Madeline.
Thank you.
Panel questions? No, thank you for coming along and giving us that submission. It's very helpful. Kim?
Hi. I just wanted to outline that I'm speaking to the WLPP today on behalf of my fellow neighbours. So that's 8 households who live or access their garages from the lower half of Silver Street. So those neighbours are at 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 and 13 Silver Street, plus 4, 6 and 8 Carlisle Street. Okay, so now just starting. I have lived at 8 Silver Street for 20 years. Our house is situated at the bottom of the cul-de-sac where we share a driveway with 10 and 12 Silver Street. The new house fronting Silver Street will also share this driveway for the first time. This is a very narrow, steep corridor with most households required to reverse out and perform complex 3-point turns from their driveways. We are all codependent on each other in relation to good parking habits and strong communication skills to work effectively as a community in relation to access and effective traffic flow. One vehicle parked without knowledge of how interdependent we are or the exact movements and angles required by vehicles to safely and successfully enter or exit our properties can result in a traffic jam or stalemate that results in blocking access. Visitors to properties are particularly guilty of this, especially tradesmen where multiple vehicles can be involved. The peak traffic times are commuting to work and the 2 school runs. However, there is a constant flow of tradesmen, cleaners, grocery deliveries and Uber Eats. The properties involved at 7, 8, 9, 10 and 12 Silver Street are required currently to reverse from their driveways and undertake complex reverse 3-point turns, or alternately reverse for a distance of 100 metres to the corner of Silver Street and Carlisle Streets, where the 3-point turn is then executed. The vehicles using the laneway to the north of 8 Silver Street, that's 4, 6 and 8 Carlisle Street, also reverse from their garages along the laneway to exit and typically do a 3-point reverse movement down the lower half of Silver Street. In this very narrow section of road, in addition to today's DA, there are proposed DAs for 9 and 11 Silver Street involving new car parking arrangements, a new driveway, reduction of public car space. In addition, there is a DA for units at 10 Carlisle Street, seeking to use the same shared laneway north of 8 Silver Street to house 5 underground car parks. During the warmer months or sculptures by the sea, on a daily basis, you would see up to 1,000 pedestrians, often visitors unfamiliar with the area, walking down the middle of the road of Silver Street looking for the beach. Typically, they have headphones on, walking in a busy group, talking, not paying attention, come to a dead stop confused when they reach the end of the cul-de-sac due to Google Maps. Another typical group we see using the middle of the roadway are parents pushing prams as the steps on the walkway are not practical. When they reach the dead end and realise the walkway to the beach involves steps, they head back up the middle of the road. We would like to request that Council look at a holistic approach to reducing the burden on this narrow street and improving the safety cones that are currently in play by looking not singularly at this one proposed DA, but others as a totality. When any of these builds occur, it will most likely be an 18-month to 2-year build. During this period, we must be able to exit and enter our driveways in a timely manner. So to conclude, what our 8 households would like is that there must be a construction management plan with more specifically a traffic management plan in relation to the loading and unloading of vehicles, with a strong emphasis that Pacific Avenue be used as the primary delivery access point for the building site. The strain of larger trucks on our road in relation to the bitumen, which is already damaged due to the steepness and amount of rain runoff, would be immense over the duration due to the weight and tonnage involved. We would like to see as a condition of build that no large trucks bigger than a ute be able to use Silver Street as an access point. In addition, the overhead power lines are very low at the bottom of the hill, and I believe larger trucks wouldn't have the height clearance to safely negotiate it. I also want to make council aware of the number of trucks, taxis, couriers, visitors with poor tyre tread that get stuck with wheel spin in our street.
Okay, Kim, thank you. You've gone well over time. We've heard your condition that you want us to consider. Thank you very much. The panel, do we have any questions? Thank you. Daniel, I believe you're speaking on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, that's
applicant. Thank you. When you're ready.
no problem. Yeah, so the applicant's actually in the Canary Islands right now for a few weeks. I believe it's 2 or 3 in the morning, so it'd be a bit difficult for him to present. But I'm the town plan that prepared the 4.6 for the project. So just to start off, we fully support council's recommendation for approval and all the conditions enclosed in the consent. I understand it's been a process over 10 months of working very closely with council, and there's been several amendments done to the proposal to mitigate impacts relating to view loss, overlooking and traffic and safety. So just to start off, one of the key points I've heard from a number of speakers is safety with traffic and sight lines in this area. So I do agree, knowing the area well. It is a very dangerous location. There's a lot of pedestrians in the area, and cars are unfamiliar with the environment driving those roads. So it's really important. One thing that council has ensured, and the applicants and then the plans to address, is that the front fence is 1 metre high, ensuring compliance with the Australian standards to require a 2.5 by 2 metre display. So ensuring that when vehicles exit the site, they have full visibility of pedestrians on the footpath, which is, I think, quite important. And then also to the rear laneway, even though there's not a high volume of pedestrians, there's a number of vehicles that exit and enter in that location. So the applicant has amended the concept to have a turntable with the 2 parking spots to ensure that vehicles enter and leave in a forward direction. There was a number of concerns raised with the construction period with a construction waste management plan. That will be considered as part of the CC1 with the DA consent. I recommend these comments forward onto council's traffic department when considering the endorsement of that construction management plan, because there's a lot of local knowledge, understanding the area and the issues. So I think it's quite important that when council are approving, once the builder prepares that construction waste management plan, it's forwarded for them consideration, with the consideration of all the neighbours and the things they could think are local issues when adopting that plan. My professional view is looking at the proposal. It's a very difficult site. There's a lot of view impacts and neighbours surrounding. There's a 5-storey flat building, a 3-storey house, and a number of other low to medium density houses surrounding the property. I think the proposals provided a good balance between protecting, enhancing views in some areas, and then being minor view loss in other areas. It's a well-balanced proposal. I know there's a previous proposal of the site that exceeded the height limit by a different applicant, and then this proposal has been amended to ensure it's under the height limit and is more set into the land to mitigate any of those impacts. I understand with overlooking, it's quite hard, something to discuss today, but I know council has looked at that with heightened sensitivity in terms of location of windows and balconies, and provided screening, recommended and required the applicant to amend the proposal to provide screening where required. So if there's any further questions to the panel, I'm happy to answer them, but that's probably it from me at this stage.
Questions, council, panelists?
Just one question.
Thank you, Joan.
You said that table, Daniel, that's for the property that has the access to Silver Street, or is that the properties on Pacific Avenue?
Oh yeah, so Pacific Avenue has the 1 metre high front fence that ensures that it allows visibilities when cars exit the property. So at the rear, it's just, I understand there's a turning bay, so cars would come in, they park, and then they go in their turning bay, so they drive out in a forward direction. That area is open, so cars will be able to see oncoming pedestrians. But I believe that section is not the pedestrians, is the thing that height sensitivity, it's more the other vehicles coming out and manoeuvrability. But the key concern of pedestrians is going to be on Pacific Avenue, where there's a lot of people walking up and down that road. which is why the actual existing fence is above 1 metre. So currently it's non-compliant. The idea is bringing it down to comply with the Australian standards.
Graham?
Daniel, just one question. You've heard the residents express some uncertainty about the accuracy of the view loss diagrams. Can you explain
sure.
how were created and potentially confirm that they are accurate?
Yes, yeah. So firstly, to start off, I fully appreciate all the objectors' comment on that. I understand it's something that can feel quite opaque with, these view loss, are they accurate, are they not? From my experience, I've prepared dozens of these similar view loss tenacity assessments over the last couple of years. And historically, what you used to do is you used to go get a height pole, and then you'd plonk it on the side and you'd have it structurally or put in, and then you'd have a surveyor pinpoint those RLs of that height pole. For the last 5-10 years, that process has become redundant because the technology and surveying has become so advanced. You just need to know one relative RL level, and then you can build a pinpoint the other RLs of all different buildings and make that relative for a view loss assessment. So I've done some very large, complex view assessments recently, and the height pole is no longer a process it's seen as more like a third tier kind of methodology with certainty. So now it's kind of really the 3D models and having the RLs determined on those buildings as the best practice. What happened was council, when asking for the tenacity view loss assessment, they asked for an independent surveyor to provide a survey of all the surrounding buildings, and that the model that was done by A Canary was model of those adjoining buildings by an independent surveyor. And then council reviewed that with their digital team and the planner, and they confirmed they thought it was accurate. So that's the process they went out. Unfortunately, that process wasn't made, I guess, transparent to the community, but I can assure you that the information used is being based off an independent survey that was provided to council and assessed.
Thank you.
No problem.
Alison? One question from me, if you could explain, I'm not sure you were involved in the application for the subdivision.
No, I know the history though. Like I prepared the 4.6 based on that approval, so I'm pretty familiar with the proposal.
I think one of the well, they all noted it, but Vaughan in particular was saying that he felt that what was presented as the building envelope on those 3 lots is different to what this is. Could you just give an outline of why that is?
Yeah, sure. So what happened was historically there was a proposal to build 3 dwellings and a subdivision, and it's like a concept DA. That concept DA wasn't actually supported because it failed to consider great detail against the DCP and LEP. It was purely conceptual, so council didn't feel comfortable supporting it. So they just approved the subdivision itself and recommended that a future DA be prepared to provide greater detail and clarity on the proposal. So my understanding is, since that subdivision proposal, there's another DA that was submitted, which was not supported by council. That resulted in significant view loss, shortage of deep soil, greater setback non-compliances. And what's happened is that application was not supported, and a new DA put in that has been prepared based on to be largely compliant with the current LEP and DCP, notably the height standard. So that's kind of the history behind from the original concept to now. The main difference, I say, there's a lot more detail and consideration to it being a buildable, actual considered out DA rather than just a concept kind of massing that didn't have considered things that make the building functional and the needs of the residents. It's just something that's been more well considered. But I guess it confirmed that DA was never, it was conceptual, wasn't actually part of the approvals, just the subdivision was approved.
Right, thank you for that explanation. Nothing further. Thank you everyone for coming. Again, apologies, Daniel, for the applicant being notified so late, but we're pleased that you came along to answer these questions.
Yep, yeah, no problem. Happy.
Thank you as to the other speakers as well. The next item on the agenda is item number 411 DA 417-20221, which is 11 Pembroke Street, Bronte. The council did not receive any submissions on this application, and we don't have any speakers here today. We'll move on now to item number 5, DA 487 of 2022, 45 York Road, Queen's Park, alterations and additions to dwelling, including a new first floor addition, double car garage fronting York Lane with a self-contained studio above and swimming pool at rear. Submissions were received. We received 3 submissions on this application. The registered speaker is Carla Middleton, who's the architect. There's no objectors speaking today, only you, Carla. So do you want to present your application to us?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to present. I'm just available if anyone has any questions.
Right. Panel? No.
Great.
Thank you for making yourself available in any event.
Thanks, panel.
Cheers. Bye. Item, which is the last item, number 6, DA 110 2022 A, 7 Thompson Street, Tamarama, modification to garage, bin storage, roof, additional solar panels, excavation, amendments to conditions of consent. Submissions were received from the neighbour and the registered speaker, and we also received from the neighbour further written submission late yesterday, which has been distributed to all the panel. Registered speaker is the applicant. You're Troy, so you're the geotech consultant, which is very helpful for us because I think there may be some questions around that. So thank you, Troy, for coming along. Nicola isn't here. Is it just you, Troy?
No, I thought Nicola was calling in as well. That was my understanding. She was playing.
Okay, we don't have Nicola. No, Nicola's not here. She's left it to you, Troy.
Okay.
Is there anything you'd like to say about it, or you just hear questions?
Yeah, I mean, I can make some comments.
If you would.
Certainly. I mean, obviously, the neighbours have concerns regarding the groundwater inflow to their property, which we know it's a serious concern. We've completed investigations in number 7 at multiple times, following significant rainfall events. We've not found any groundwater flowing through number 7 at all in any of those investigations. So it's more likely that groundwater is in fact flowing from the street side of the property and not from number 7. What was I say? The proposal is obviously to have a piled support for the garage, so it's essentially going to be sitting up like a table above the bedrock surface and well above that. The piles will have virtually no potential to impact or divert any groundwater that does actually flow across the rock surface anyway. And this is supported by the peer-reviewed undertaken by council, by JK Geotechnics. I guess another point being that the proposed roof structure for the garage extending to the boundary, it's going to have no impact on groundwater flows which are occurring potentially, still not confirmed, 5 metres below surface. So I don't see it really having a big geotechnical component in reality, because there isn't the groundwater. So yeah, I mean, I think the neighbours certainly should be investigating themselves where the groundwater is flowing from, because it doesn't appear to be flowing from the site. And I don't think that should be a reason to impact this development application. I don't think there's much more to say. Yeah. Any questions though? More than happy to field.
Panel? No. Jan, you were.
Just I have a question in terms of, I suppose, best practice in the area with the topography the way it is and the bedrock, etc., and water flows, finds its own course. I'm just trying to understand how you are saying that it doesn't flow from 7 to 9, and that it's coming from under the road, or I just, if you can just explain your investigations further.
Sure. Yeah. So we've obviously put multiple boreholes into that area. The ground surfaces and the bedrock surface is clearly dipping towards the north to northeast into the gully, which extends from the rear of the adjacent beach. So we put a whole heap of, I think 6 or 7 boreholes down across the site, and not one of those has found any form of groundwater at all. I mean, groundwater can be very isolated. It's likely to flow into shallow depressions within the rock surface along defects in the rock. But you'd expect that if there was a significant volume of flow, we would have seen it in one of our boreholes. So it's highly likely that it's actually flowing from upslope below the road reserve and down towards the northeast, which would put it flowing from the road reserve and impacting number 9. So that's, yeah. And that's why a big reason why a piled structure is very good, because it's very, very small surface area of impact onto the bedrock surface. So any flow that is occurring, it can just continue as it is around the pile, continue down slope. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. Nicola, you're here.
Sorry about that. I thought I was on hold, but apparently I wasn't. Anyway, sorry. Can I provide a statement on behalf of our application, if that's possible?
Yes, certainly. But if your geotech could just remain with us, that'd be good, Troy.
Yep, that would be great if you can. So just as background, the primary objective of this application is to facilitate disabled access for my parents who are going to live with us, and also to allow us to age in place. One of the key modifications is to widen the existing garage. The current garage, built in the 80s, is narrow. It involves many steps, and it's impossible for a disabled person to access to and from. Without a wider garage, parking on the street is the only option, with associated risks due to steep gradients, traffic, and trip hazards. Our modification also proposes to house the 4 council bins in a dedicated bin store, as we want to keep the area around the cars free from impediments. The second part of our modification is the basement storage. The room is to be used for non-habitable purposes, including storing garden and pool equipment, solar batteries, and so on, and probably 63 years of my parents' married life. The basement storage allows us to keep items that would otherwise be in the garage out of the way. The excavation complies with Council's latest DCP, and a construction impact statement confirms that the material excavated is primarily sand, the majority of which can be reused on site. At the last panel meeting, several concerns were raised. The first was regarding a stream purportedly originating in our garden bed. We've owned our house since 2007, and I've never seen any evidence of this, including during one of the wettest periods on record. But in order to fully understand this issue, we engaged our geotech consultant to undertake an analysis and also to obtain any Sydney Water correspondence on the issue under the Government Information Public Access Act. So the extensive geotech investigations did not find any groundwater nor a stream. Excuse me. Further, Waverley Council has conducted its own peer review of our findings and concluded that the construction would not increase groundwater ingress issues at the neighbour at 9 Thompson Street and can be carried out safely. The second assertion made at the last meeting was that Sydney Water had cautioned to avoid unnecessary cutting into our garden bed to not disrupt the existing water flow. The Sydney Water correspondence that we uncovered confirmed that Sydney Water had in fact visited the neighbours in 2018 and 19, but there was no caution recorded in the file. In fact, on both visits, Sydney Water noted that water was not visible while on site, and that Sydney Water and the neighbour agreed that it's not a Sydney Water issue. Our consultants have also undertaken a dial before you dig search and a review of Sydney Water's register, which confirms the responsible authority for stormwater is in fact Waverley Council. Therefore, the condition requiring consultation with Sydney Water is not relevant. The final concern was that the neighbours' services are in a shared garden bed, and therefore the garage should be set back for access and maintenance. These are Torrens Titles properties. There are no shared garden beds, and there's no easement permitting our property to be used for any reason by a third party. I accept that much of this information was not available to the panel on the last occasion, but since receiving your comments, we've worked hard to address and resolve these issues. Our geotechnical investigations are thorough, including 5 boreholes to test for groundwater, an overland flow study, and a construction impact statement. The proposed garage design includes a slab suspended to minimise earthworks and takes full responsibility for our water on our site as per Council's water management policy. Our application has also been supported by the Council's building and development team, and the peer review commissioned by Council confirms that the construction will not increase ingress issues at 9 Thompson Street and can be carried out safely.
That's your time, Nicola. Sorry, is that you just got to wrap up your time?
Yep, this is the last sentence. So based solely on our expert conclusions and the facts presented, there is no planning reason to refuse the modifications, and I respectfully request that the panel considers the facts presented and the additional information submitted and approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming back to the meeting as well.
Sorry.
It's okay. Nicola, any questions, panel, for Nicola? You do? Thank you, Alison.
I've just got one question with the storeroom level. That if it is, why does it need to be 308 in
Sorry, I hear you.
Sorry. With a storeroom on the lower ground level, if it's a storeroom, why does it need to be 3080 high when the rest of the floor area in the hallway and the breakfast area is 2.6? And also you've put a window in, you don't really need a window in a storeroom.
So the height is based on calculation of storing quite a lot of equipment and plant in that room, and which is what we basically have done in consultation with our electrician and so on around solar panels and battery storage and that sort of thing. The window is just to allow natural ventilation, nothing more. I personally, if you don't have a window, then you have to mechanically ventilate a subground room. So my personal preference is to have a window and allow natural ventilation, because an enclosed space like that with a lot of things in it will get musty. There's no doubt about it. So that's the reason. So we've basically looked at all the different things that will need to be stored in there, which are on the plan. And that's how we've come up with that storage room size and dimensions.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Jan, you want a question there?
Yes, thank you. Just to follow on from that, it just seems very odd, as has been pointed out by Alison, to have a storeroom of that excessive height. Normally storerooms might be, 2.1 metres or something to that effect, so that you can go in and store things. But to have it over 3 metres when the rest of the floor to ceiling heights, and the issue here is the additional excavation that's required. So the additional excavation seems to be unwarranted to allow for a storeroom of that height.
Well, the excavation that's applied for is compliant with Council's DCP, which was newly amended last year. I think, again, as I said, the calculation is based on the plant and various things that we've worked out that need to be stored in that room to allow enough ventilation for all the equipment. I think we've got in here like the lift motor, we've got batteries, we've got quite a lot of solar panels on our roof, which we want to be able to have batteries to basically go off the grid as much as possible and be as green as we possibly can. I personally think that it makes more sense to have an open window that you can allow fresh air in rather than have to have mechanical ventilation, which would be the other option. So I don't really see what the issue is. And as I said, we are compliant with Council's DCP in terms of excavation and the volume. And again, most of the geotech study and most of the material that's in there is sand, and it can be reused within the site. So We've also provided a construction management plan, which details very carefully about how we intend to minimise any construction impacts. Yeah, I mean, I think that the information that's being provided is comprehensive. Council's panel supported it. Council's team supported the room last time, and again they support it this time based on their assessment.
I've got one more question.
One more question from Alison.
Because the room is 3 metres high and has a window, has it been included in the floor space ratio? Because in actual fact, that's a habitable space, because a storeroom is defined as less than 2,400 ceiling height.
It has been, yeah, it has been included within Council's FSR calculation, and that's confirmed by Council's own planner and also our planner. I have a look at the report. I can't find exactly the page, but yes, it has been included in the panel's calculation of FSR.
Okay, thank you.
I think that's it, Nicola and Troy. No further questions for Troy Rising from the excavation or anything else? Thank you both. That's our last item for today. So I will close the Waverley Local Planning Panel meeting for the 26th of July, and the panel will now deliberate, and the determinations will be put up on the website in due course sometime this week, hopefully.